You make more money than your parents did at your age, probably a lot more, and somehow you feel broker than they ever were. That's not in your head. That's math. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why your $75,000 salary buys you less than your parents' $35,000 salary bought them in 1995. Not adjusted for inflation, literally less. My name is Sam, and I've been studying wealth psychology and what actually keeps people stuck financially for the past 5 years. If you've ever felt like no matter how much you earn, you're always behind, if you've gotten raises that somehow made your life harder instead of easier, or if you're just tired of feeling like the economic rules changed and nobody told you, hit that subscribe button because this channel breaks down the systems that keep you running in place. By the end of this video, you'll understand the 5 invisible mechanisms that are extracting money from your paycheck before you even see it, why your parents could buy a house on a single income while you can't afford rent on 2, and what you can actually do about it without just earning more money. Because here's the thing nobody tells you, the problem isn't your salary. The problem is that the cost structure of middle-class life has fundamentally changed. And if you're using the same strategies your parents used, you're playing a game that doesn't exist anymore. Let me tell you about Mike. He's 38, makes $82,000 a year as an engineer. His dad was also an engineer. In 1985, his dad made $42,000 a year. If you adjust Mike's salary for inflation, he's making about 60% more than his dad did at the same age. Mike should be crushing it, right? He's educated, he's got a good job, he's doing everything right. Instead, Mike lives in a 1-bedroom apartment. His dad owned a 3-bedroom house by 30. Mike has $47,000 in student loan debt. His dad had $0. Mike's rent is $1,800 a month. His dad's mortgage was $520. Mike pays $380 a month for health insurance with a $5,000 deductible. His dad paid $40 a month with a $200 deductible. Mike is making more money and living a worse life, and he can't figure out why. Here's why. There are 5 categories of expenses that have grown faster than wages, and they're not the ones anyone talks about. Everyone focuses on housing and healthcare, and yeah, those are bad. But there are 3 others that are even more insidious, because they're invisible. Let me show you what I mean. Expense category 1, the education tax. Mike's dad went to state school. 4 years cost him $8,000 total. He worked summers and graduated debt-free. Mike went to the same state school. 4 years cost him $94,000. He worked summers too. He still graduated with $47,000 in debt after scholarships. That's not inflation. That's a structural change in how education is funded. In 1985, state governments funded about 75% of public university budgets. Students paid 25%. Today, students pay about 75%, states pay 25%. The cost got transferred. Mike's dad paid $2,000 a year for college. Mike paid $23,500. That's a 1,175% increase. Inflation over the same period? About 180%. Mike's student loan payment is $510 a month. His dad's student loan payment was $0. Right there, Mike is starting life $510 a month behind someone making less money than him. But it's worse than that. Because of compound interest, Mike will pay $68,000 over the life of that loan for an education that cost his dad $8,000 out of pocket. That's $60,000 Mike has to earn just to be in the same position his dad was in at graduation. And Mike's dad got to invest that money instead. If Mike's dad had taken that $60,000 and invested it from age 22 to 38 at 7% returns, it would be worth $165,000 today. Mike has negative $47,000. Same degree, same job. $212,000 wealth difference by age 38. That's the education tax. Expense category 2, the housing trap. Everyone knows housing is expensive. But let me show you how the math actually works, because it's worse than you think. Mike's dad bought his house in 1987 for $89,000. His salary was $42,000. House cost 2.1 times his annual income. Mike is looking at houses that cost $425,000. His salary is $82,000. House costs 5.2 times his annual income. But here's what makes it a trap, not just expensive. Mike's dad bought that house on a single income. If he lost his job, his wife could enter the workforce and they'd keep the house. Mike can't buy a $425,000 house on $82,000. He needs a partner who also makes $60,000 plus. Now 2 people are locked into their jobs just to keep the house. Mike's dad had a backup plan. Mike has a trap. But let's talk about the actual payments. Mike's dad had a $85,000 mortgage at 9% interest. His payment was $680 a month. Mike would have a $382,500 mortgage at 7% interest. His payment would be $2,545 a month. Mike's dad was spending 19% of his gross income on his mortgage. Mike would be spending 37% of his gross income. The bank says Mike can afford it because his debt-to-income ratio is under 43%. But Mike's dad was spending half that percentage and building equity faster because rates were higher, but purchase prices were lower. And here's the thing that nobody talks about. Mike's dad could refinance when rates dropped in the 90s and cut his payment in half. Mike is buying at high rates and high prices. If rates drop, great, he can refinance. But prices aren't going down. He's locked in at the worst of both. Mike's dad paid $89,000 for a house that's worth $425,000 today. He built $336,000 in equity just from appreciation, plus another $90,000 from paying down the mortgage. Total wealth created, $426,000. Mike is paying $425,000 for that same house. If appreciation continues at 3% annually, in 30 years it'll be worth $1,030,000. Mike will have paid $916,000 in mortgage payments. His net wealth? $114,000. Same house. Mike's dad netted $426,000. Mike nets $114,000. That's the housing trap. Expense category 3. The healthcare gouge. This one is brutal. Mike's dad paid $40 a month for family health insurance through his employer. His out-of-pocket costs were maybe $500 a year for copays and prescriptions. Total annual healthcare cost? About $980. Mike pays $380 a month for individual coverage. His deductible is $5,000. His out-of-pocket max is $8,500. Last year, Mike hit about $6,200 in total medical expenses after insurance. Total annual healthcare cost? About $10,700. As a percentage of income, Mike's dad spent 2.3% of his salary on healthcare. Mike spends 13% of his salary on healthcare. That's an extra $9,720 a year, $810 a month, that Mike is paying just to have the same health security his dad had. And here's the kicker. Mike's dad could go to any doctor. Mike has a narrow network. If he goes out of network, he pays full price and it doesn't count toward his deductible. Mike's dad had better coverage and paid less. Over 30 years, Mike will pay an extra $291,600 for healthcare compared to what his dad paid. And if he invests the difference, that's $706,000 in lost wealth. That's the healthcare gouge. Expense category 4. The transportation trap. Mike's dad had one car. Mike's dad's wife didn't work, so one car was enough. Mike lives with his girlfriend. They both work. They both need cars. 2 car payments, 2 insurance policies, 2 sets of maintenance. Mike's dad bought a new car for $12,000 in 1985. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $35,000 today. Mike bought a used car for $28,000. That's actually cheaper, except Mike needed a car at all because his job requires it. His dad could have taken public transit occasionally if needed. But here's the real tax. Mike's girlfriend has a car too. Her payment is $340 a month. Insurance for both cars, $285 a month. Gas for both, $320 a month. Maintenance, $180 a month averaged. Total transportation, $1,125 a month. Mike's dad spent maybe $450 a month on transportation, inflation adjusted. Mike is spending $675 a month more just on transportation. That's $8,100 a year. Over 30 years, that's $243,000 in direct costs, or $589,000 in lost investment returns. But here's what makes this a trap. Mike needs 2 cars because he and his girlfriend both have to work to afford housing. The second income requires the second car. The second car costs almost half the second income after taxes. Mike's dad had transportation flexibility. Mike has transportation dependency. That's the transportation trap. Expense category 5, the invisible inflation. This is the one nobody talks about. It's not showing up in the CPI, but it's eating your paycheck. Mike's dad could buy things once and they'd last. His TV cost $400 and lasted 15 years. Mike's TV cost $800 and lasted 5 years. Then the software stopped updating and he had to replace it. Mike's dad bought a lawnmower for $180 and used it for 20 years. Mike has to pay $60 a month for lawn service because he's working 50 hours a week and doesn't have time to mow. Mike's dad bought tools and fixed things. Mike pays people to fix things because he never learned how. And YouTube tutorials require time he doesn't have. This is what I call the convenience tax and the planned obsolescence tax combined. Mike is paying monthly subscriptions for things his dad owned. Mike is replacing things his dad bought once. And Mike is paying for services his dad did himself. Phone bill. Mike's dad paid $30 a month for a landline. Mike pays $85 a month for a smartphone he has to replace every 3 years for $800. Or streaming services. Mike's dad paid $40 a month for cable. Mike pays $73 a month for Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, Spotify, and YouTube Premium. Software subscriptions. Mike's dad bought Microsoft Office for $200 once. Mike pays $100 a year for Office 365, cloud storage. Mike's dad stored photos and albums. Mike pays $36 a year for iCloud. Meal kits and delivery. Mike's dad's wife cooked. Mike spends $280 a month on DoorDash, Uber Eats, and meal kits because he works 10-hour days and doesn't have the energy to cook. This adds up to about $650 a month that Mike spends on things his dad either didn't need or did himself. That's $7,800 a year. Over 30 years, that's $234,000 in direct costs, or $568,000 in lost investment returns. That's the invisible inflation. Let's add it up. Every month, Mike pays more than his dad in these 5 categories. Education tax, $510 a month in student loan payments. Housing trap, $1,865 a month extra in housing costs. Healthcare gouge, $810 a month extra in healthcare costs. Transportation trap, $675 a month in extra transportation costs. Invisible inflation, $650 a month in subscriptions and conveniences. Total, $4,510 a month that Mike is paying that his dad didn't pay. That's $54,120 a year. Mike makes $82,000 a year. After taxes, he takes home about $58,000. After these 5 categories consume their extra $54,120, Mike has $3,880 left for the entire year for everything else. Food, utilities, clothing, savings, retirement, emergencies, everything. That's $323 a month. His dad, making the inflation-adjusted equivalent of $51,000, had about $31,000 left after the same categories. That's $2,583 a month. Mike makes 60% more money and has 87% less to spend. That's why your salary feels like it's shrinking. Because it is. The cost structure of middle-class life has changed so dramatically that earning more money often just means you qualify for more debt. Here's who profits from this system. Universities profit from the education tax. They raised prices because they could, because the government guaranteed student loans, which meant students would pay any price. Banks profit from the housing trap. They collect interest on bigger mortgages over longer terms. Your $425,000 house at 7% over 30 years means you pay $916,000 total. The bank collects $491,000 in interest. Insurance companies profit from the healthcare gouge. They've lobbied to keep healthcare tied to employment and to prevent single-payer systems that would cut costs. Car companies and lenders profit from the transportation trap. They've designed a world where you need a car to work, then they sell you that car on credit at 8% interest. Tech companies profit from invisible inflation. They've moved from selling products to selling subscriptions. You never own anything. You rent it forever. This isn't a conspiracy. This is just what happens when every industry figures out that the middle class has money but not enough to be immune to extraction. You're the profit center. So what do you actually do about this? You can't change the system, but you can refuse to participate in parts of it. Strategy 1. Attack the education tax first. If you have student loans, especially high-interest private loans, paying them off early is one of the best investments you can make. That $510 a month is a guaranteed return equal to your interest rate. If you're pre-college, consider community college for 2 years, then transfer. Consider trade schools. Consider skills that don't require a degree. The education tax only exists if you volunteer for it. Strategy 2. Refuse the housing trap. Don't buy the biggest house the bank says you can afford. Buy something you can afford on 50% of your income. That gives you the backup plan Mike's dad had. If you can't afford a house on half your income, rent instead and invest the difference. Being house poor isn't wealth. It's just expensive. Strategy 3. Minimize the transportation trap. If possible, live close enough to work that one of you can bike, walk, or take transit. Every car you don't need is $500 to $800 a month you keep. Buy used. Buy reliable and boring. A 2015 Honda Civic will get you to work just as well as a 2024 Ford F-150, and it costs $400 less per month. Strategy 4. Cut invisible inflation ruthlessly. Cancel subscriptions you don't use daily. Cook on Sundays so you're not ordering delivery all week. Buy tools and learn basic repairs on YouTube. This isn't about being cheap. It's about refusing to pay a monthly fee to rent your life. Strategy 5. Build the buffer. Save $10,000 as fast as you can, then $20,000. This is the emergency fund that breaks the debt cycle. No more credit card interest from unexpected expenses. No more overdraft fees. This buffer is what gives you the negotiating power to say no to bad jobs, bad debt, and bad financial decisions. If Mike implements these 5 strategies, he can cut that $4,510 a month middle-class penalty down to maybe $2,800 a month. That's still more than his dad paid, but it's survivable. That extra $1,710 a month invested over 30 years at 7% returns is $2,078,000 in wealth. That's the difference between running in place and actually building something. Look, I'm not here to tell you that you're bad with money, or that your generation is lazy, or that you should just work harder. You're working harder than your parents did and getting less for it. That's not opinion. That's math. The game changed. The costs shifted. And nobody updated the playbook. Your parents could buy a house, raise kids, and retire on a single middle-class income. You can barely afford rent on 2. That's not your failure. That's a systemic change in how middle-class life is structured and who profits from it. But once you see the structure, you can make different choices. You can refuse to volunteer for the education tax. You can reject the housing trap. You can minimize the transportation dependency. You can cut the invisible subscriptions. And you can build the buffer that gives you options. Your salary isn't shrinking. The middle class is being hollowed out by design. And the only way to escape is to stop playing the game the way they designed it. If this video showed you where your money's actually going, hit that subscribe button. I break down the financial systems that keep people stuck and the strategies to get unstuck. Drop a comment. Which of these 5 categories hits you the hardest? Let's compare notes. I'll see you in the next one.